Hey, deep divers, welcome back to the show. If you're liking what we're doing exploring the future, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes.
Right.
Today,
Yeah.
we are going to be taking a deep dive into John Lennox's 2084, Artificial Intelligence and the Future of Humanity.
It's a fascinating topic, to be sure.
Get ready for a mind-bending journey.
Yeah, AI is something that has moved so quickly from science fiction to reality, and it really is shaping our world in profound ways. I mean, you see it everywhere, from your smartphone to self-driving cars. It's really
It's
remarkable.
not just theoretical anymore, it's here.
It is. It is.
And Lennox tackles it from such a unique perspective. He's a mathematician and a Christian believer,
Right.
which you don't often see in discussions about AI.
That's right. And he brings this really deep understanding of logic and reason, as you might imagine, coming from a mathematical background,
Yeah.
but also this whole belief system that often gets left out of these conversations.
Okay, so let's start with the big question. Where is humanity headed with all of this? Is
Yeah.
AI a promise? Is it a threat?
Yeah.
Or maybe a little both?
Yeah, Lennox dives right into this, and he kind of explores the idea of what constitutes a dystopia. What does that word even mean? And he contrasts two famous novels to kind of illustrate this Brave New World in 1984.
Oh, yeah.
And he shows how they're both dystopias, but different flavors of dystopia.
Interesting.
One is a world of engineered happiness where technology fulfills our desires, but at the cost of individuality. And the other is a world of technological control, a surveillance state,
Okay.
where even our thoughts are policed.
So chilling stuff. So which dystopia are we headed toward, or is it something totally different? Does he answer that question?
Well, this is where it gets a little bit creepy.
Yeah.
Lennox brings up some chilling examples,
Okay.
particularly in the realm of surveillance.
Okay.
He points to China, for example.
Yeah.
Using AI for social control, they use millions of CCTV cameras and monitoring systems
Right.
to track citizens' movements and behavior.
It's like straight out of 1984.
Yeah, it is.
So AI can be a powerful tool, and like any tool, it can be used for good or bad.
Right.
And it leads us straight to Yuval Noah Harari and his book, Homo Deus.
Oh, yeah.
His argument is basically for the 21st century, the goal is overcoming death.
Wow.
And tech is the key. Not just living longer,
Right.
but potentially forever.
Forever. Yeah.
It's fascinating and terrifying at the same time.
Always has been. I mean, that's a concept
Yeah.
that we've been wrestling with forever as humans.
For sure. So how does Harari see us getting there?
He talks about bioengineering, cyborgs, even inorganic beings.
Wild to think about.
I know. Humans merging with machines, pushing the boundaries of what even counts as life.
It makes you think, though. What if only the wealthy can afford this kind of immortality?
It's a huge question, right? Talk about inequality. We see it already with cochlear implants, bringing back hearing, but they cost, what, 40,000 pounds each? Brain-computer interfaces to control prosthetics.
Right.
Those are probably going to be super expensive, too. So much potential good.
Yeah.
But it could create these huge societal divides.
That's something we have to think about. We're not even at immortality yet. And look at what's happening with performance-enhancing drugs in sports. Athletes are already pushing limits with steroids and all these stimulants.
That's true.
Even though it's ethically questionable. So if we're already doing that,
Yeah.
what happens when tech lets us modify our bodies and minds even more? Are we replacing natural selection with some kind of intelligent design?
That's what Harari argues. He's not using intelligent design in the religious sense, though. It's more about how we're using technology to actively shape our own evolution.
It's a lot to wrap your head around.
Yeah, and that brings us to a whole other perspective.
Right.
The biblical one.
Okay, so let's talk about that.
John Lennox, in his book 2084, looks at these questions from a Christian viewpoint.
Interesting.
He argues that the laws of nature describe how the universe works,
Okay.
but they don't explain how it all got started.
So, like Newton's laws of motion can explain how a billiard ball moves, but they don't explain where the ball came from or what made it start moving.
Exactly. There's a difference between describing something and actually causing it.
I see.
Between the laws of nature and where those laws came from in the first place.
Okay. And that's where Lennox brings in the biblical creation story.
Yeah. Humans are made in God's image, he says, given dominion over the earth. But we also have the story of Babel, you know? Lennox connects that to the idea of hubris
Okay.
and playing God.
That definitely resonates with some of our anxieties about AI becoming too powerful.
Totally. Like we're losing control of our creations.
Exactly. And that fear of technology getting out of hand, it kind of reminds me of the imagery in the book of Revelation.
No, for sure.
Like the beast.
Yeah.
That's pretty intense imagery.
Yeah.
What do you think the message is there about the dangers of unchecked power?
The beast itself is super powerful symbolically. 7 heads, 10 horns,
Yeah.
empowered by the dragon, which a lot of people interpret as Satan.
Right.
Beasts are all over the Bible, especially in prophetic books like Daniel. They usually symbolize empires and worldly powers.
Okay, so in Revelation, this beast has blasphemous names on its heads and makes people worship it.
Right. It's a pretty strong image of a power that's opposed to God.
Yeah.
Wants to rule everything, control everything.
And then there's that second beast, the one that comes from the earth.
Oh, yeah. That one makes people worship the first beast.
Right.
And it enforces this mark
Yeah.
that you need for buying and selling.
It's pretty unsettling when you think about how reliant we are on technology these days.
I know, right? For
Yeah.
everything, communication, commerce.
Our identities, even.
The line between our physical lives and our digital lives is getting blurrier all the time.
It makes sense that some people see these tech developments as steps toward that kind of control and manipulation described in Revelation.
Yeah, I can see that.
But Revelation's not the only place where this imagery pops up. Daniel has a vision of a beast too, doesn't he?
He does. Actually, he sees 4 beasts.
4?
And the 4th one is especially terrifying.
Oh.
It's described as strong, with iron teeth,
Okay.
crushing and devouring everything in its path. It's different from the others. This little horn
Okay.
that speaks arrogantly and persecutes the holy people.
So it's like the ultimate symbol of oppression and power.
Exactly. And get this.
Yeah.
It tries to change the times and laws, which connects back to that mark of the beast from Revelation.
I see the connection.
It's all about power that wants to control every single aspect of life,
Wow.
even challenging God's authority.
Given everything we know about human nature and our tendency to want power, how could AI make that even worse?
Yeah.
What can we do to prevent something like what C.S. Lewis describes in that hideous strength?
Those are some big questions,
Yeah.
and that's exactly what we're going to explore in the next part of our deep dive.
Can't wait. Stay tuned.
Welcome back. Last time we were talking about those creepy images of beasts from Revelation and how technology could make our desire for power and control even stronger.
It's kind of scary when you think about it.
It is, yeah, and it's not like it's some far-off dystopian future either.
Right. It's happened throughout history.
All the time.
Empires rising and falling.
Yeah.
Dictators trying to control everyone.
It's a pattern we see over and over again. But
Yeah.
the thing is, technology has the potential to make that pattern so much worse than we've ever seen.
In ways we can't even imagine.
Exactly. Imagine a world where one person or one group controls not just physical things,
Okay.
but information, communication, even our thoughts. It's something a lot of great thinkers have worried about.
Like C.S. Lewis.
Yeah, in that hideous strength,
Yeah.
it all comes down to one guy, immortal,
Wow.
and he controls everything.
A chilling prediction of what a homo deus with all that technology could look like.
Blurring the line between human and machine,
Yeah.
taking the pursuit of power to a whole new level.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. But before we get too carried away with these scary scenarios,
Right.
it's important to remember that the Bible doesn't stop there. It's
Yeah.
not just about things getting worse and worse.
So there's hope.
Yeah, it points to a coming rescue.
You mean like the second coming of Jesus? Some people might call him the real homo deus.
Exactly. Not some human who becomes godlike through technology,
Right.
but God becoming human.
Totally different.
And that idea offers a completely different picture of the future.
Yeah.
Compared to all these AI scenarios where humans are in control and messing everything up.
Potentially, at least.
Right. Well, one of the key themes that Lennox explores is the idea of a future restoration, a time when God will intervene in human history and set things right. This is often referred to as the second coming of Christ.
Okay. So this is where we get into the more explicitly religious aspects of Lennox's argument.
Yes, but it's important to understand that Lennox doesn't see this as some kind of escapist fantasy. He believes that the biblical vision of the future has real-world implications for how we live our lives today.
Interesting. So how does this belief in a future restoration affect how Lennox views AI and the future of humanity?
Well, it gives him a sense of hope and purpose. He believes that even though we live in a broken world, there's a greater plan at work, a plan that ultimately leads to redemption and renewal. And he sees technology, including AI, as playing a potential role in this plan.
So instead of viewing AI as a threat to humanity, he sees it as a potential tool that could be used to advance God's purposes in the world.
Yes, but he emphasizes that this requires wisdom and discernment, We need to be careful about the kind of power we give to machines, and we need to ensure that AI is used ethically and responsibly.
Okay, I'm starting to see the bigger picture here. Lennox is urging us to think about AI not just in terms of its technological capabilities, but also in terms of its spiritual and ethical implications.
Exactly. He's calling for a holistic approach to AI, one that takes into account not only the science and engineering, but also the philosophy, the ethics, and the theology.
It's like he's saying that if we want to create a truly beneficial future with AI, we need to engage not only our minds, but also our hearts and souls.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And I think that's a message that resonates deeply with what Lennox is trying to convey in 2084.
Interesting. So how does this play out when it comes to AI? Does Lennox see AI as a threat to faith, or can the two coexist?
Well, he actually uses the concept of AI to explore some deep theological ideas.
Okay, like what?
Well, for example, he talks about the Christian belief in a seed project.
A seed project.
Yeah, God's plan for humanity centered around Jesus Christ.
Okay, so how does that relate to AI?
Well, Lennox contrasts this seed project, which is about God intervening in human history,
Okay.
with the idea that humans might create a homo deus through technology.
Oh, wow.
It's like two different visions of how humanity might reach its ultimate potential.
That's a mind-blowing comparison.
It is.
So on the one hand, we have this idea of God working through humanity to bring about a greater purpose.
Right.
And on the other hand, we have this vision of humans using technology to transcend their limitations
Yeah.
and become like gods themselves.
Exactly. And this raises profound questions about what it means to be human, our relationship with technology,
Yeah.
and our ultimate destiny.
This is getting really deep.
Yeah.
I'm already feeling my mind is blown. And
Yeah.
we're just scratching the surface.
We are.
Folks, you are not going to want to miss the rest of this deep dive into 2084.
Stay tuned.
We'll be right back.
Yeah.
Welcome back, deep divers. We are in the midst of exploring John Lennox's 2084. And things are getting really interesting. Before the break, we were talking about this contrast between the seed project and the idea of creating a homo deus through technology.
Yeah, it is a fascinating comparison. On one side, you have this idea of humanity's potential being realized through a relationship with the divine.
Right.
And on the other, you have this vision of humans achieving a kind of godhood through their own technological advancements.
Okay, so let's unpack this a bit more.
Right.
What does Lennox have to say about this biblical idea of the seed project?
Well, he argues that the Bible presents this overarching narrative of God's plan for humanity, which is centered around Jesus Christ.
Okay.
And he calls it the seed project because it's like a seed that's been planted and is gradually growing throughout history.
Interesting. So how does Jesus fit into this seed project?
Well, in Christian theology, Jesus is considered to be both fully human and fully divine. Okay. He's the embodiment of God's love for humanity, and his life, death, and resurrection are seen as the key events in this seed project.
Okay, I'm starting to see the connection.
Yeah.
So Lennox is contrasting this divine plan centered around Jesus with the transhumanist idea of creating a homo deus through technology.
Right.
It's like two different paths to achieving a kind of higher state of being.
Exactly. And Lennox argues that these two paths are fundamentally different. The seed project is about God working through humanity,
Okay.
while the transhumanist vision is about humans relying solely on their own ingenuity to transcend their limitations.
So it's a question of where we place our ultimate hope and trust.
Yeah.
Do we trust in a divine plan, or do we believe that we can engineer our own salvation through technology?
That's a key question that Lennox explores throughout the book. He's not against technology. In fact, he sees it as a powerful tool, but he cautions against putting all our eggs in the technology basket, so to speak.
I like that analogy. Don't put all your eggs in one basket, especially when it comes to the future of humanity.
Right? Lennox believes that the Bible provides valuable insights into the nature of humanity. And those insights are crucial as we navigate this rapidly advancing technological landscape.
So let's dive into some of those biblical insights.
Okay.
What does the Bible have to say about what it means to be human,
Yeah.
especially in a world where AI is increasingly blurring the lines between human and machine?
Well, one of the key concepts that Lennox highlights is this idea of humans being made in the image of God.
Okay.
This concept, which comes from the book of Genesis, suggests that there's something unique and special about humans that sets us apart from the rest of creation.
Okay, so we're not just highly evolved primates. There's
Yeah.
something more to us than that.
Exactly. And Lennox argues that this something more is not something that we can replicate through technology. It's not just about our intelligence or our ability to process information. It's about our capacity for love, for compassion, for moral reasoning.
Like souls, basically.
You could say that it's that intangible essence that makes us human. And Lennox believes that this essence, this image of God within us, gives us inherent dignity and worth.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But if we're made in God's image, doesn't that imply that we're already perfect or at least complete? Why would we need to upgrade ourselves through technology?
That's a great question. And Lennox addresses this directly. He acknowledges that the biblical account of creation includes the concept of the fall, the idea that humanity rebelled against God and introduced sin and brokenness into the world.
The classic story of Adam and Eve and the forbidden fruit.
Exactly. And Lennox argues that this fall explains why we experience suffering, why we make bad choices, why we have a tendency towards selfishness and greed. It's like we have this potential for greatness because we're made in God's image, but we also have this flaw within us that pulls us away from that potential.
So the fall is like a glitch in the system.
Yeah.
We're designed for greatness, but we're also prone to messing things up.
That's a good way to put it. And Lennox argues that this understanding of human nature is crucial as we think about the potential impact of AI. If we have this tendency towards selfishness and greed, then we need to be very careful about the kind of power we give to machines.
Because if we can't even manage our own flaws, how can we expect to create machines that are free from those flaws?
Exactly. Lennox isn't saying that AI is inherently evil or that we should avoid it altogether, but he's urging us to be cautious, to think deeply about the ethical implications of AI and to ensure that it's used for good and not for harm.
Okay, that makes sense. So he's not a techno-pessimist, but he's also not blindly optimistic. He's somewhere in between, urging us to proceed with wisdom and discernment.
Exactly. And he believes that the Bible provides valuable guidance in this regard. It offers insights into human nature, into the nature of good and evil, and into the ultimate purpose of our existence.
So let's talk a bit more about those biblical insights. What does the Bible have to say about the future of humanity? Does it offer any clues about how we might navigate this rapidly evolving technological landscape?
The Bible says true power and authority don't come from our technology.
But from somewhere else.
Yeah, from something beyond us.
It's like a counter-narrative to the idea that we can make ourselves gods.
Exactly. The Bible says real power comes from aligning ourselves with something higher.
With a greater purpose.
Yes. Something bigger than just our own desires.
So if AI is forcing us to face these big questions
About what it means to be human.
about power and control,
Does the Bible offer a different way of answering those questions?
is there a way to keep developing technology?
Without becoming arrogant and trying to play God.
Those are questions we really need to think about as we move forward in this new era.
Absolutely.
It's not about rejecting technology altogether.
Well,
It's about being wise,
yeah.
ethical,
Responsible.
recognizing that we're not all powerful.
We have to find that sweet spot between embracing what AI can do
The potential is incredible.
and realizing the dangers of chasing power without wisdom and compassion.
That's a good point. And maybe the Bible, with its ancient wisdom,
It stood the test of time
can give us some guidance.
as we navigate this unknown territory.
It reminds us that we may want to be like gods,
Uh-huh.
but our humanity
What makes us human?
is rooted in something deeper
Our capacity for love,
and compassion.
connection with something beyond ourselves.
That's a powerful thought.
It is. And it brings us back to that question we asked at the beginning of our deep dive.
Yeah.
How can we make sure AI serves humanity?
Instead of the other way around.
That's what we're going to keep exploring in the last part of our discussion.
Stick around. Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into AI Homo Deus and the Book of Revelation. It's been a journey, hasn't it? We've talked about how AI could completely change what it means to be human.
Yeah.
And all the worries it brings up about a world of total control and surveillance, like those beast systems in the Bible.
We've also been thinking about whether the Bible offers a different perspective.
Right.
One where true power isn't about technology, but about connecting with something bigger than ourselves.
Definitely a lot to think about.
Mm-hmm.
But we left off with a really important question for you all.
Uh-huh.
How can we, here in the 21st century, make sure that AI serves humanity?
Right.
And not the other way around. It feels like this question is getting more urgent every day.
It really is. There's no simple answer.
Right.
But one thing's for sure, we can't just sit back and watch. We have to be involved in shaping how AI develops and how it's used. It's like we're at a crossroads.
Okay.
The choices we make today, they're going to determine what path we take.
I see.
Do we just race ahead with technology without thinking about the consequences?
Right.
Or do we choose a path that's aligned with our values,
Yeah.
with what we want the future to look like?
So it's not about being anti-technology.
No, not at all.
It's about using it responsibly.
Exactly, but how do we do that? Where do we even begin?
That's the million-dollar question.
Well, I think it starts with recognizing the limits of AI.
Okay.
Remember those thought experiments we talked about?
Yeah.
The Chinese room? The arguments that computers don't really have goals or feelings,
Yeah.
they show us something really important.
What's that?
Even the smartest AI isn't conscious,
Okay.
doesn't have empathy,
Uh-huh.
doesn't truly understand what it's like to be human.
Mm.
So we need to be careful about trusting algorithms too much,
Right.
giving machines too much power when they don't really get the consequences of their actions.
It's kind of like giving a loaded gun to a kid who doesn't understand what it can do.
That's a pretty powerful image.
And this is where I think the Bible's perspective can be really helpful.
How so?
It reminds us that humans are unique. We have this capacity for moral reasoning,
Okay.
compassion,
Yeah.
love. These are things that AI, at least as we know it today, just
Right.
can't replicate.
Yeah.
So maybe instead of trying to create homo deuses through technology, we should focus on those qualities that make us human, our empathy, our sense of justice, our ability to really connect with each other,
Exactly. It's about remembering who we are at our core.
rediscovering what it means to be human in this age of machines.
And there are people working on bridging that gap between the human and the artificial.
Really?
Rosalind Picard at MIT, she's doing amazing work in effective computing.
What's that?
Instead of trying to build machines that copy human emotions,
Oh.
she's developing AI systems that can understand and respond to our emotions.
Wow, so like AI that could sense when you're stressed
Yeah.
and offer support.
Exactly. It's about making technology more in tune with our needs and our values.
That's incredible. What if, instead of being afraid of AI,
Right.
we saw it as a chance to learn more about ourselves? Like, what if studying how machines think could give us new insights into our own minds?
That's a really interesting idea. It gets at the potential for humans and AI to actually work together.
Not one replacing the other.
Right. But for that to work, we have to ask ourselves some hard questions. And Lennox argues that for those bigger questions, we need to look beyond science to philosophy to theology to the realm of faith.
And that's where his Christian perspective comes into play.
Right.
He sees the Bible as offering a framework for understanding not only the origins of the universe and humanity, but also our ultimate destiny.
He points out that the Bible has been making predictions about the future for centuries.
Right.
And many of those predictions have been fulfilled throughout history.
That's a point I hadn't really considered before.
Yeah.
Well, this conversation has been truly mind-expanding.
What are our values? What kind of world do we want? How can we make sure AI reflects those values and helps us create that world?
It feels like we're at this turning point in history
It does, yeah.
where we have a chance to shape the future, not just for ourselves,
Uh-huh.
but for generations to come.
It's a huge responsibility, but also incredibly exciting.
Absolutely. But it's not something we can do alone,
Definitely not. We need to be having these conversations everywhere.
not just in universities and labs.
In our homes, communities, workplaces.
We need to talk to policymakers,
Yeah.
tech companies,
That's right.
to make sure AI is developed ethically and responsibly.
It's not just a tech challenge.
It's a human challenge.
That requires our creativity, wisdom, and compassion.
Listeners, we hope this deep dive has given you more questions than answers. Because when we're dealing with such powerful technology,
Yeah.
asking the right questions is the first step to creating a future where AI empowers us, not controls us.
A future where technology helps us to become more fully human. Thanks for joining us on The Deep Dive.